Based O'Connor, felt like you guys were arguing different topics. You were arguing should Christian Zionism support Zionism. Andrew was arguing must they. That's the thing. I tried to actually jump on that. The thing is, I made a mistake because I think I thought in advance that he's going to do that because I saw him before conflate different things and make any should statement about we have to. So I was kind of expecting him to do that, but I was going to in my opening statement clarify what I mean by should. I didn't do it. So later on, it was too difficult then to correct that because you could say that should and ought to are in a philosophical sense very very close unless you beforehand. I'm speaking here to a philosophy teacher, so David, what do you think?
Yeah, you can have different meanings of the word should, so it is good to clarify. It's like if I say hey, this coffee's delicious, you should try this. That's not saying you have a moral obligation to try this. I'm saying it's a good idea and so on. Whereas if you're saying should Christians support Zionism, there is a moral component there. It's like to what level of it? Like, is it absolute moral obligation you have to be doing this, or is it's something that you should be doing because it's a good thing to do?
Yeah. So my point the entire time was I thought it was also very much implied that it is the right thing to do, that Christians should be expected, or that it would be highly recommended, that it would be good to support Israel, to support Zionism. I would never argue that Christians are kind of under an obligation to support Israel. But he made it all about being an obligation. I only objected to that once, then he still went on to ought to, but I wanted to talk about different topics at that point. So, Mr. Man Dude, but AP, if you support Israel existing, that will give the Antichrist nuke. I have to say, look.
We both had the same reaction to that one.
Actually, you go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, Andrew in his opening, and we both are convinced that Andrew is a brutal debater, and so we're expecting some brutal arguments. And he in the past has come out with arguments that so thoroughly frustrated his opponents. His opponent, like Matt Dillahunty, stormed off stage, stormed out of the debate, and so on. So we're expecting some awesome stuff. And then when he's speaking, he's saying that I'm saving my most powerful one for last. My most powerful one. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be the really powerful one. And then when he gave his most powerful argument, I thought it was his dumbest point, and I thought it was a terrible argument. And I think it ultimately goes against him. So, guys, his main argument was, if Christians support Zionism, which means if we support Israel's right to exist and to defend itself, then guess what's going to happen? We're supporting Zionism, and what's going to happen is the Jews are eventually going to select a Messiah, but that Messiah will be the Antichrist, and they're in a nation that has nuclear weapons, and so we're supporting a nuclear annihilation of a bunch of people and so on. So that was his main point. It's funny because he attacks you for like practical considerations, but he's like, this is something that could happen. Guys, keep in mind, if you're going to use this reasoning, okay, if I see a homeless person and I decide whether to give him a sandwich or something like this, well, guess what? You may give that man the sandwich and he may declare himself the Antichrist and go kill a bunch of people. Okay, yeah, I guess that's possible. Doesn't mean you shouldn't help people. Shouldn't help people in need. But apart from that, you guys never got to this. I thought about jumping into the Q&A and stuff like that, but I didn't. But apart from that, so Andrew Wilson's concern, guys, his main argument is that if Christians support Israel's right to exist and to defend itself, then that ultimately leads to them rebuilding the temple, picking a Messiah, a false Messiah, the Antichrist, and then going on a nuke spree. So this is Andrew Wilson's main concern and his main argument. But I'm sitting there thinking, and so AP brings it up. Most Jews in Israel don't support this. Going and rebuilding the temple and stuff like this. And Andrew Wilson, I don't know if it's correct or not. I'll assume that he's correct. 30% of people do, and he said, but that number has risen to that. It's been rising in the past. And I'm sitting there thinking, why do you think the percentage of, granting what you're saying, why do you think the percentage of people supporting rebuilding the temple, picking a Messiah, all that sort of thing, why do you think that number would be rising? Is it because they look around and they see people saying we need to abandon them and just let the jihadis deal with them, and Jews are evil and we should not be supporting Israel, and Israel has no right to exist? Is it because their backs are increasingly against the wall and more people are turning against them? Or is it because people are gladly helping them against the jihadis? Which one of those do you think would drive more people to support picking a Messiah and going nuclear? In other words, under what circumstances would Israel go nuclear and just say, we're taking out everyone with us because our Messiah says so? Under what circumstances? Would it be A, when everyone abandons them and they're surrounded by jihadis and the jihadis are going to wipe them out and they say, we have no other choice but to go nuclear? Or would it be everyone is gladly supporting the right to defend themselves against the jihadis and Israel is nice and safe? Under which of those circumstances do you think they're going to go nuclear? I would think it would be massively more likely, like orders of magnitude more likely, for Israel to be backed into a corner and to say the only way out of this is for us to go nuclear. I would think it would be if everyone abandoned them and everyone condemned them and everyone said, you're on your own against 2 billion Muslims who want to subjugate you and so on. I think it would be much more likely under those circumstances to go nuclear than it would be if other nations are saying, of course you have a right to defend yourself, and we'll support you. We'll support you in any way we can. In other words, I think his entire argument, his main argument that he said is his main point, I thought was incredibly stupid. And if he actually thought it through, actually suggests that we should be supporting the right to defend themselves, because that helps avoid this nuclear option that Andrew is so concerned about.
Now, here's the thing. I had the exact same reaction. In fact, I was as I was standing there, I'm listening to his opening speech, and he says that he has actually that he's preserving his best argument to the very end, and he's listing things. During the entire time, I only hear him cite one person ever. He doesn't actually go into scripture. He doesn't actually go into Christian values. He goes into simply arguing logic on his own. Then he finally brings out his best argument, and it was such a stupid argument. Like, honestly, look, I actually earlier today I chatted with Sam Shamoun, and Sam Shamoun is like, he's not a Zionist. He's not a fan of Israel. He's especially not a fan of Netanyahu. He's actually against Israel in the current war, and is quite open about that. That said, I had a chat with him, and I asked his opinion on this kind of stuff, and I told him as well in the conversation that I actually expected something solid to come from Andrew Wilson's
I expected
side,
a better argument
because in all honesty, I think that in opposition to the points that I'm making, in opposition to my position, there are some legitimate arguments that people can make, and I did expect some legitimate arguments, especially from a biblical basis or something like that. But nothing like that came. The argument that came as his best argument was the dumbest thing I heard. On the night after the debate, I heard from multiple people, including you and many others, saying that was very terrible. That was stupid. Even from some people who were on his side, who said, "Yeah, that wasn't the best thing there." So I'm not sure how he came to the conclusion that that was a fantastic argument, because it was garbage. I made fun of it, and I also brought up one very important point there, which is that he is treating it as if it is in our time right now that there is a threat of a small religious Jewish population wanting to prepare the grounds for an antichrist or something like that. What he's talking about is Jews expecting a Messiah. Here's the issue. I talked a lot in my opening statement and further about Paul's words about Jews. You know what the Jews in Paul's time were expecting? They were also expecting the Messiah. In fact, most of them were expecting the Messiah. You know what Andrew Wilson would have called the Messiah that they were expecting back then? He would have called them the Antichrist. So when Paul was praising the Jews and talking about how they are still beloved for their forefathers' sakes, and how God still has a plan for them, and God will graft them in, and so on, he was talking about the very Jews that believe in the coming of a different Messiah, which Andrew Wilson would consider the Antichrist, which is what he's so concerned about right now. It doesn't. It's ridiculous. And I'm gonna say the phrase that he apparently loves so much about me. It doesn't make any sense. So it's so weird, man. Even Sam Shimon, honestly, he told me today that that he thinks my position was actually good. And that it could be convincing if it wasn't for Netanyahu. Of course, I'm going to disagree with him on that. But at least he had something good to say. There's only one issue with what I did during the debate that I personally have a problem with. First of all, I kind of I botched my opening statement a little bit. I prepared it lengthily for days, and then I kind of messed it up because I spent too much time at the beginnings of the opening speech, and then didn't have enough time, then started cutting things out and so on, and didn't deliver it very well. But then I also spent too much time on the whole two Israels thing, and I think we started conflating and getting a few things wrong there, and I want to address it actually as we go through this today.